Hello and welcome to One Designer, One Work from AIGA, the Professional Association for Design. My name is Lishan Huang. I'm your host for today. If this is your first time at a One Designer, One Work event, this online series features one designer showcasing a work that is personally meaningful. We'll hear what inspires, challenges, or guides them. You'll have a chance to expose yourself to new material by exploring them with our guest. Now I'll introduce our presenter for today. Batsheba Castro Martinez will share a site-specific video piece called The Oculus by Shantell Martin for their one work. This piece by Shantell Martin explores some of the questions and repetitions we find ourselves asking. Are you being you? Are you being true? And who are you? Now I will formally introduce Batsheba. Batsheba Castro Martinez, also known to friends as Bats, is a first-generation Mexican-American designer based in Kansas City, Missouri. Born in West Hollywood and having a rich Oaxacan heritage, their love for the arts and culture was almost inevitable. But it wasn't until they started a semester taking painting and drawing courses at Taller Tamayo in Oaxaca, Mexico, that their love would grow into a pursuit of a design career. They graduated from Missouri State University's graphic design and illustration program and developed a passion for human-centered design while studying at the Jan Matejko Academy of Fine Arts in Krakow, Poland. After graduating in December 2019, they began freelancing on a variety of projects due to the pandemic. And as of late, they're currently working as a senior experience designer at VMLY&R and act as an associate of community engagement for AIGA Kansas City. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Batsheba and I'll come back and host the Q&A later on.
Thank you so much for introducing me, Lishan. So who am I? My name is Batsheba Castro Martinez. Like Lishan mentioned, I am a first-generation Mexican-American. I'm the daughter of Olga Castro and Jorge Castro, which are derived from Oaxaca, Mexico. I'm super proud of that. And because I'm a first-generation American and also the eldest child, I feel like going to college was inevitable, but I didn't know what I wanted to do necessarily. My family had moved from Los Angeles to the Missouri area when I was 9. So I didn't really think of what I wanted to become until really late in my high school career. And then I panicked. And then I went to study in Oaxaca for a semester. And when I came back, I actually went to community college, did general studies there. And from there, I transferred to Missouri State University, where I double majored in graphic design and illustration. So shout out to MSU. They also selected me to be kind of representative of sorts, a student representative to send over to study abroad at the Fine Arts Academy in Krakow, Poland. While there, I focused on UI, UX design courses, and that's really where my love for user experience design really flourished. And when I came back, honestly, all I wanted to do. But because of the pandemic, I graduated in 2019, and that's when everything started going downhill for all of us. I kind of had trouble finding a job, and I didn't know what to do, but I was very thankful for the network that I have of people that were willing to give me freelance jobs here and there. And, I held it together until I started projects with the MLY&R here in Kansas City. And I just recently started full-time as a senior user experience designer for them in May. So I am very excited about that. I am very passionate about the work that we're doing, and also very passionate about the culture. I'm very grateful to be part of an organization that for Pride Month this month, we launched the Pronoun Project, and it's a web tool where you can visit and create a custom Zoom background or Instagram post with your pronouns, which I go by they, them, she, her. And I was kind of everywhere whenever they announced it, which was super cool. And that's me as a professional currently. I'm also part of AIGAKC. I act as the Associate of Community Engagement. I'm also a representative for AIGAKC for the Center for Architecture and Design. And I also volunteer with Babes Helping Babes, which is a small little team of creatives who really endorse diversity, inclusion, and equity in everything that they do. So I helped create some stuff for them. So shout out to Abby Kallenbach. I know you're on here right now. So also I wanted to highlight a project that I was very fortunate to be part of. It's called Grid 19. You might have seen it on the AIGA Design Instagram and socials. It's a collaborative piece by 19 designers of one city. And the proceeds from that poster go directly to a charity from that city. So I was really fortunate to be part of this group of talented designers. And to this day, I think we've raised $10,000 or more for our charities as a whole. And we keep on adding to the collection of posters that we have. So why are we here? I wanted to highlight Shantell Martin as a queer person myself, because there's a lot in her work that I think everyone could really benefit from seeing and learning about her process and everything that she does. And also it's Pride Month, so I wanted to highlight someone who I think is a good representation of what it means to be a queer artist and still relatable, because I feel like sometimes those two things aren't necessarily shown in our media necessarily. So I wanted to highlight her for that. So a little bit about her and her upbringing. She grew up in Thames, southeast of London, to a working class family in a white community. And she is right here. No, she's right here. She just had a different father from her siblings. And so she was the only biracial sibling. And so that itself created different challenges for her, especially being of a white community. So to deal with that and to kind of deal with the upbringing that she had in Thames, and because of Thames, actually, how it's constructed, it's like built on a level above because it's close to the Thames River. So she would play a lot as a kid. And I think that's where really her love of play in general came about. And she also, because she liked to express herself through different drawings and stuff, she would give them names and superpowers and just draw a bunch of little stick figures that would enable her play through art. There's a lot between that and her going into Central St. Martin's in London, but I did want to touch on her and her exploration in St. Martin's. So she went there after graduation or after secondary school. Here, she really discovered different people with different backgrounds, different incomes, but it was a space where she really learned to collaborate with these people and to share resources with these people. Her work, because of her childhood and because of different pains that she had experienced in her life, was very unhappy in this time. And we can see that here in a piece that she commonly refers to as the headless man. And the hangman, the hangman is actually a businessman who cut himself from a noose and traveled the world unhappily. And sometimes you'll see this little figure with a briefcase and sometimes not, but it's reflective of the pain that she still carried, regardless of the play that she experienced as a child. During this time, she also was working in a medium such as graffiti and tagging. So she was really out there doing big pieces of street art and creating things that were bigger than herself. During this time, she also hung out a lot with the foreign exchange students, in particular, the Japanese crowd. She began collecting a lot of toys, different Japanese little toys, and would watch a lot of anime and was really involved in learning about their culture and how they adapted to London, being from a different culture. So much so that after she graduated from St. Martin's, she moved to Japan. And she, while there, really kind of delved into the culture and really admired everything that she was being exposed to. There, she began working in a very small, intimate setting, just because there, as a foreigner, obviously she would have been, arrested if she had been caught tagging or doing graffiti. And also it's not respective to the culture and is obviously frowned upon for a foreigner to do. So she began drawing smaller. She kept a sketchbook, and instead of working with spray paints and bigger mediums like that, she began using pens and markers, really small markers. The smallest, I think, was 0.05 micron, if you're familiar with those. So naturally, because of that, her work became a lot thinner, a lot more delicate, more cute almost, because of the change in tool that she was utilizing. So one thing that she does know is the differences between London and Japan for her. While in Japan, I think we associate a lot of cute things in Japan. So we have like manga, anime, really cute things is what she says. And naturally that came into her work versus in London, where things were a lot more, not stoic, but more serious, had less fun attached to her work. And it was very obvious that she was unhappy because of her work. But here we see still that playfulness or that unhappiness, or maybe that seriousness, but intermingled with the cutesiness and a little bit more quirkiness in the characters, and she begins to explore a little bit more of that dynamic flow that we will see in her future work. So I did want to kind of show this video for everyone, because I think it's super cool. She began going to concerts, getting paid to do livographies, is what she likes to call it, but it's called live performance drawing. And so she would have this setup where there would be a webcam, and she was on her sketchbook with her marker drawing to the music, and it would become a performance for everyone involved. And so we will take a little look. So something that she learned through performing live was creating by being honest and creating without hesitation or judgment or the fear of judgment, which personally is something that I struggle with. I am a experienced designer. It requires me to overthink a lot, and my personality itself is very much rooted in overthinking sometimes. So I am very inspired in her approach to working, in her way of being unabashedly herself without really thinking of, what she's putting on the paper. And, she knew that she wasn't going to be in Japan for the rest of her life. She wanted to move eventually. She didn't really know when, But one day she woke up and she was like, I don't want to live here anymore. I want somewhere new. And so she actually went on vacation to New York City. And what she mentions is that, when you get to New York City, something about the place just stays with you. And I totally relate to that. But she fell in love with New York City. And so the next couple of months after her initial visit, she moved there. And something that she noticed about New York City that was different from Japan is that there wasn't as much technology or collaborativeness, maybe that the culture kind of promoted in Japan. It wasn't nearly as visible in New York City for her. So while she was there, she began drawing in the way that she was performing live performance art. Instead of the digital tools that she was using, she went back to the roots that she started with and started using analog materials such as big old chunky black pens for walls. She started drawing not only on walls, but on sneakers and clothes. And that's where her partnerships with Nike and her partnerships with the New York City Ballet kind of came about, because she was creating these things everywhere and anywhere. Here we even see it on her leather jacket, which personally I think is totally badass. I love leather jackets and I want that jacket. So, but because she was still creating in a very dynamic way, she wasn't thinking too much. She was approaching it following the pen, which the pen is an extension of herself and where she wants to go. So in that respect, I think she's just following herself to put what instinctively she needs to put on that white canvas. And so she was still trying. Because of this, we know that while you're creating things and you're not thinking too much of them, obviously you're not putting meaning behind those things that you're drawing, right? There's a lot of symbols that we see in her work being reflected. For example, I don't think it's on here, or yeah, right here, there's these eyes with little flowers around them as eyelashes almost. And what she says about that in retrospect, because she doesn't think while she's drawing them, she says the eyes existed in the world. She was not always open, let alone responsive to the world, but one singular moment created a moment in which she delved into meditation, and that helped her be accepting to new experiences and be more receptive to everything around her. The experience itself was smooth, made everything more smooth. And so that's why we see those lines not be so rigid, so angular or anything. And everything around what she creates actually is very smooth and fluid. And here I have a clip, and she began drawing on murals and everything she could get her hands on. And I actually have a video of her.
And here you'll see me follow. If there's a bump in the wall, maybe that'll take me to another place. If the pen goes blank, then we do some dashes. And then I'll step back and look to see if there's any kind of smoother lines in the drawing. And if there's a smoother line, I draw a nose and then a mouth and eyes, because that looks like a face. And I'll go through and draw all these faces. And it's funny, at the conference one day, someone asked me, why do all your eyes look left? And I said, oh, they don't all look left. And then I stood back and looked at some past drawings, and I said, oh, they all look left. So I'm still trying to figure out some of what these ideas or symbols or language means when I draw them. You know, if there's an angle that's more like a triangle, I draw a bird's beak, and if there's a bird's beak, you need an eye. And for me, words and drawing are the same thing. It's very spontaneous, it's all lines. And you'll see that within the work. And then I always, you know, when I'm drawing, I'm so close to the paper, so that when I step back, it's always a surprise to me that it works, because I never really know what I'm drawing until it's finished. And sometimes people ask me, how do I plan out my composition? And I say, I don't, it just happens. And every time I do, it's a surprise.
So we see her way of working is a little bit more fluid here, not as dark as her days in London. Here, she's truly starting to embrace herself as an artist, and I think that's super inspirational. So that brings us to the Oculus. What is the Oculus? It is a site-specific piece that is no longer on view, but it was in the World Trade Center up until October 11th in 2019. And I can also share this as well.
Jump, 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 change. Do you ever think you change? Think, thinking, blinking, thinking, blinking, thinking, but do you ever think for yourself? Understanding self, putting yourself on a shelf. Thinking, blinking, blinking, understanding this place, understanding yourself, understanding time and understanding why, understanding you and understanding wine and understanding how and understanding time and understanding why and understanding time.
In viewing this video, I think what really stands out to me is the many people, especially people in business suits for some reason, just keep on looking and they'll be entranced by these flashing images and graphics and keep on walking, but their heads are fully turned, which I think this question of who are you, you are you, who are you you, is something that we all grapple with to some extent, right? I think it's a really relatable thing. It's almost something that you hear someone from college start, maybe a philosophy major, that rambles upon the human existence and stays up late at night talking to you about this. And it's something as a queer person, personally, I grapple with a lot, especially coming out. I think in our culture, it's seen as this big old coming out when it's more like a series of always coming out, especially to people that don't know you. And then you get questions of maybe it's a phase, maybe you're not sure. How could you know if you've never experienced it? Or a variety of things, right? So it leaves you almost questioning yourself. And it's like, am I queer? Am I sure? And then I think I recently watched a video on BuzzFeed. It was about a trans woman of color coming to terms with that. And she has a similar experience that I think we don't talk about often. And I think is super reflective of this work, is that question and the repeated question to yourself of validating yourself and kind of that circle that you find yourself in when that is happening. So it's instinctively honest, her work is, and super relatable. I think we see a lot of images, especially this month, of the rainbow flag, but what are we if we strip that symbol off? We're human. We are queer humans. Just the label was created by us, and the symbol was also created to represent us, yes, but at the core of who we are and of our experience is just human. And I think a lot of people with homophobic beliefs, I think they're scared of seeing pieces like this because you're peeling off everything that society has kind of put on this community, and you're just seeing the rawness of their experience. And it's so similar to theirs that it's challenging their view, which I think for a piece like this, at least for me, that's why it's so important. For me, that's why it's so inspiring, because it's so relatable to that average Joe that is passing by it, and, you know, looks at it, glances at it, but then just kind of keeps staring at it. And maybe it stays with him. And, you know, maybe that circle of who are you? Are you you? And you are you stays with him. And that validation also stays with him. So something that she says about her work is that she doesn't necessarily see herself actively putting those labels of queerness and of biracialness in her work, but she sees those as boxes. Yes, we need to lift these boxes up, but we don't necessarily need to put ourselves in them. When people have asked me what it's like to be a working class, queer, mixed race person of color, it's difficult because I've not actually thought about those things. I've not put myself in those boxes in terms of her art. Instead, she's an individual who's trying to tell her story through the medium of drawing. Through that, almost as a default, I'm lifting those boxes up as opposed to putting myself in them and holding down those stereotypes. But I think I want to leave you today with this comment that she said during an interview. So she was asked, do you see your work in dialogue with themes of representation, diversity, and empowerment? If so, how? And she says, yes, by simply being myself, a queer, biracial woman from a working class background. In reality, I shouldn't be where I am. The act of me doing what I do is a form of activism, and you could say a rebellion against societal limitations placed upon myself and others. And I think personally, that's what I find the most inspiring of her work, is because she's just being herself, regardless of the colors, regardless of the limitations that people put on her. Her existing is the greatest form of activism, and the greatest form of activism any of us could potentially do. And that is the end of my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Batsheba. And I thought it was really insightful what you were saying about building these boxes or lifting these boxes, but not having to put yourself in them. And it makes me wonder, like, nobody really asks like men, like, oh, what is it like being a man in art, right? Or it's often sort of put upon people whose gender or sexual identity, the cultural identity has been marginalized or minoritized. And so, yeah, how do you typically, like, was this something that Martin's work helped you think through, or is this a way of that you've been trying to negotiate that yourself?
I think personally, I kind of am like her in terms of I didn't really think of those limitations because I didn't realize that there was another way of living. I didn't realize the privileges maybe other people had over me. I just knew that I was different and treated differently, especially growing up in the Midwest, right? Especially with Martin's work. Once I saw that, I think it helped me, especially because therapy also overlapped with that. Mm-hmm. The validation that her work provides, especially the Oculus, is just something that I don't do for myself. So I think her work kind of brought that to the forefront of, you know, whenever I am in those cycles of self-doubt, I'm like, no, you are you. And that sticks with me.
Yeah. Another theme that I see as a parallel in your life and Martin's life and work is movement, right? In her case, from London to Japan to New York, in your case, from Los Angeles to the Midwest, and then your studies in Mexico and in Poland as well. And with the Oculus in Martin's work, people are literally in movement as they see it. So is that something that you think about in your own work, like these different places where you've lived and the idea of movement?
Yeah, I think because of my different experiences, just they provide a lot of different insights, maybe. But in terms of literal movement, I think of it more, especially as an experienced designer, of the movement of the user and where they would be going in their journey, in their user journey. And I try to put myself in their shoes as much as possible and ask questions that they would ask. And so that's how it guides me.
Wonderful. And so we've also seen from your background, you majored in graphic design and illustration, and you've transitioned also into experience design now. And there's a lot of folks in our community, I think, who have similar paths or want to take similar paths. Can you speak a little bit to that, of how you made that move from the graphic and the illustration to the experience side of things?
Yeah, I think as an illustrator, I kind of had a difficult time maybe grappling with the fact that I wouldn't have control for my art. So in terms of the illustration that I do now, I want to create it for myself and for, maybe clients that I work one-on-one with, but that aren't dictated by a company or a particular marketing message that is like the overlord for it, right?
Sure.
And in terms of design, I think experience design and traditional design kind of relate to each other in terms of you're trying to keep the user or the audience at the forefront, right? I think those overlap a lot. The only difference is that with experience design, you're asking even more questions. It's not just the type. Is it legible, or is it, are the colors not contrasting enough? It's, can this person read it in the screen? Does it say enough? Does it guide them through the process enough? And I think those two mindsets are very similar and can overlap a lot.
Yeah. There's a follow-up from an audience question. What considerations and work defined a shift from traditional graphic design to interaction design? Was there like a specific project or piece that you did that marked that transition for you?
So I did an internship with a small startup. It was called Raise the Valley. And I began, it was kind of a product for like a replacement bread for someone who can't eat gluten and a lot of other things. I can't remember the top of my head, and I had to put that customer at that was my focus. So I had to think of what is important to that customer, the messaging, everything. I was the only intern, so everything I did. So I had to start thinking and putting on these different hats and accumulating everything into the packaging design, into the messaging, into the website, even, and the social media. So I think that was the very first experience of putting the user at the forefront of everything for me personally.
Wonderful. Well, final question. Could you just tell our listeners or viewers where they could find you and keep in touch online, or if you have any other call to action you want to give before we head out today?
Okay. Yeah, you can view my portfolio at Batsheba, and that's BATSEVA makes.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram, the same thing, Batsheba Makes. And my final call to action, if you haven't viewed CoGrid 19, it's an awesome collection of posters. And I think there's a couple of new ones out. So definitely check those out.
Wonderful. Well, Batsheba, thanks again for your presentation, your introduction to Shantell Martin's work. And thank you everyone for tuning in. So thanks again. Bye.